Okay, good. Stream is being loaded. Fine. Hi everyone. Great to see you here. So these kind of videos, will be dedicated to the topic of Russian invasion into the Ukrainian territory and what to do with all that stuff. So today we are living in a modern world. Seems like everything could be fine. People have lots of resources, and we could live in peace. But no, something have happened. Uh, and basically, I want to address it to those who are seeking for the answers. Uh, I'm personally Russian by nationality, yet I'm totally against the invasion, and I wholeheartedly support Ukrainian battle for their freedom and independence. And I have some reasons on that. Looking at the news titles and listening to the esteemed people, Western people and leaders, sometimes I feel so bad. Some statements and ideas really drive me crazy. And point is, looks like people do not understand what's going on. And let's just go into some of the questions which are being raised, and looks like it makes sense. Yeah, we could ask like that. We could ask about corruption. We could ask about Ukraine itself. Why do we need it at all, right? But at the same time, if we learn this topic deeper, if we find real answers to the questions, we'll get the clearest view that Putin should be stopped. Okay. Oh well, let's see what kind of counter arguments are there. Why should not we support Ukraine? People say, okay, it's their own affairs between Russia and Ukraine. They have a long history of communication, of battles as well as of conflicts, of misunderstanding of one another. And yeah, I do agree with that partially, but even actually, I remember there was one um, humor writer, Zadornov, who said, okay, Ukrainians are so much proud of themselves. Um, we should make world map of Ukraine. But basically, it's just partially a joke. Uh, we could see one side of that. We could see that Ukrainians are too much proud, probably even at the Soviet times, probably so. There is a history of Ukrainian battle for independence even with the Soviet Union before the Second World War and within the Second World War. And yeah, I do agree that kind of cooperation with Nazis is not acceptable yet. Cooperation with Russians, with Soviet Russians, could be not acceptable as well, right? Um, why is that so? We'll dig into that question later on, not today. It's really big question. And each, actually, almost each family, I would say more than 50% of families, have history of what good was ruined by the Soviet regime with the or within the families, okay? Within each and every family, almost. So we'll talk about that. But first of all, uh, it's their own affairs. It's between Ukraine and Russia. It's not our kind of headache, let's say. Well, it's not, probably. Probably it's not. But so was the Germans' invasion when the Second World War broke out, right? It was nobody's business, just those, okay, who had borders with the Hitler's Germany. But eventually, since the world was so naive, I would say, Hitler wasn't stopped after his first invasions, and eventually the war was everywhere in Europe. The war was partially in Africa. The war was in Russia, okay? And it was a disaster. It was really a disaster. So what could have happened people could be smarter, let's say, yeah, world leaders could be smarter, and they could see that invading other territories is not acceptable. Simply speaking, okay, it's not acceptable. Okay, people will say, as well, the um, United States invasion in Iraq wasn't acceptable. Probably so, and the majority of the U.S. population think that way now. Yeah, uh, but people could think of that. People could make arguments. Did Iraq have some chemical weapons or nuclear weapons or some kind of development on that front? We do not know for sure. But if they could have, it would be also a disaster. So this kind of point is really controversial. But that's nothing like that, even similarly, okay? In the case of Ukraine, they do not prepare for the nuclear war. They do not have their own kind of plants to produce nuclear rockets and stuff. I could be wrong with terms, okay? I really didn't much dig into that topic, but even though I could be, mm, in a sense, emotional sometimes, I have strong points about what's going on. You might not be willing to listen, but yet somebody would find a sense there, okay? So now, is their own affair? It's not their own, okay? It's only Putin's affair, no one else's. Putin's and Russians. From the invasion into Crimea and then into Donbas region, Russia showed its real face. Me as Russian, to me as Russian, it's difficult to talk about it. Even in the beginning of the massive invasion, I felt totally ruined. Mm, I should have my identity kind of connected to Russia and to general culture and politics, whatever. But now I really face the case that we are now as kind of good Germans in the Hitler's Germany. So what should we do? And one of the most important points is not to just stay calm and pretend nothing's happening. Something huge is happening. Something terrifying is happening. One person's decision and people who are around them or around him, of course, decided to, simply speaking, kill tens of thousands of people or even more just because of their desires. They didn't really help Russians in Donbass or Ukraine or in Crimea, I would say. Crimea is still very undeveloped region, and not because of Ukrainians, because of Russians did not invest that much and just finds interests in this region for themselves. Some kind of bankers, politicians, whoever. The real people's life didn't get better. And okay, so if we say this is Ukraine and Russia, their own affairs, not really, because we see same pattern as we saw during history with any dictator. Aggressive invasion into other countries without any response from the world, or with kind of quite quite soft response from the world, where people, politicians are so much arguing if we could accept it or we could not accept it. What are you talking about at all? Of course, could not. And it doesn't matter again. Strongly speaking, US invasion was bad. If China invades Taiwan, not good, okay? Uh, if whichever country invades whichever country, it's not good. Clear statement. That's it. Then we could think something, discuss something, whatever, how to find peace. But if we cannot make even this clear point, what's the hope of this world? So Putin opened the door to the terrifying events which could follow. And it wasn't Ukrainian fault. Okay, it wasn't at all. Uh, a friend of mine from childhood said that he has friends from the special military forces who were told to kind of dismiss and then go to Ukraine, to Donbass, and to fight there. And when kind of they talked about what's going on, they said, why people think like those volunteers are there or some militia is there? We are in the front line. It's actually Russia Special Military Operation Forces. That's it. These are people who have a lot of experience in different kinds of wars. They're there on the front line battling for Putin, thinking that they're patriots because they're kind of making Russia great again. Such a stupid stuff. People believe that actually it's a civil war in Donbass. No, it's an invasion. First of all, it's a special operation. Okay, and only then, of course, there is a civil conflict there. Who argues? But the war conflict, the military conflict, was based on the invasion, nothing else. You could prove me something, but I do know from people whom I know, yeah, what's going on there from 2014, from 2014, yeah. Well, it's not just Ukrainian and Russian business. It's much greater, and it has quite critical perspective, which would impact the whole world. And if Putin won't be stopped, everyone will feel it. Okay. Then, what else we talk about? What else people talk about? Why shouldn't we support Ukraine? We should, of course, we should. So they say, why shouldn't we? Because it's too much corruption there. Such a good argument. It's a lot of corruption there, means we should support them. When Britain supported Soviet Union, you think there was no corruption? Are you kidding? There was. Communist world is the corrupted world. Social regime is the corrupted regime. North Korea is the corrupted state. It's clear as day. What else do you need to get improvement? Of course there was. But since Soviet Russia and actually Soviet Union was fighting with Germany, it got a lot of support from European countries, from the States, from Great Britain, of course, and that eventually helped the war to get to an end. Now, yeah, it's a lot of corruption in Ukraine. People kind of compare, okay, there's more corruption in Ukraine than in Russia. That's why we shouldn't support Ukraine. Maybe based on this argument, we should support Russia. Do you think United States has no corruption at all? Probably say, yeah, the scale is different, probably different to some degree, but based on some ideological patterns and structures, kind of governmental structures, there's still a lot going on, which people do not see, do not understand, even cannot imagine of what's going on. That's not a point at all. Country could be corrupted, but we support the people, the nation, the Ukrainians, who are not worthy to have this kind of fate. Yeah, it's kind of far away. There are many wars in the world. Why should we get into this one? Maybe you shouldn't, but then you meet the consequences. We met them when we had the Second World War. We had them a lot. And you think it's okay to continue the story? To just replay this game? No. At that time, it was safer because there was no nukes. Now it's much worse. Okay, and the argument about nukes, let's talk about them later on, not in this video, because it's also quite seemingly controversial, but basically quite clear. So corruption is not at all the argument to not stop. To control the kind of arms which are sent, yeah. To be in cooperation with the military government of Ukraine. Yeah, that should be done. Is that easy or difficult? That's difficult. Surely that's difficult. But if you don't do that, if we don't do that somehow, then we get the fate of the world in 1940s. Would you like that one? I won't. Okay, we could dive into that more and deeper, but maybe not today again, okay? Please write your comments and your ideas about what's going on and what should we do in this case. Okay, we shouldn't support Ukraine because Putin might use nuclear weapons. Slightly, let's touch this argument anyways because it's kind of too popular now. So he warned the world to experience nuclear attack. Soon it will be 2 years from the first warning, so it didn't happen. Then, it's not such an easy task to just start the third nuclear world war. And it's not such an easy task to command that to happen, especially looking at what's going on the frontier. Okay, uh, the commands, the tasks from the government are not fulfilled in Russian army a lot. Okay, and basically, yeah, we have this kind of threat to some degree. But what would happen, let's say, if we don't stop Putin, if we don't, if we are afraid of having nuclear war, we don't stop Putin, we don't stop Russia, Russia invades Ukraine, it has new opportunity to advance more. Do you think this kind of victory would stop them, would kind of demotivate them from the expansion? I would say you saw the Crimea. Actually, the Crimea was the trigger point. Because if the world governments and population and politicians would really hardly influence that case, and there would be opened a new front on the southern Ukraine to bring back the Crimea, we won't have this war now. We won't have hundreds of thousands of killed and wounded people. Just imagine, we won't have that. So the world leaders didn't behave straightforwardly. And again said, okay, maybe it's their own. Okay, I would say, of course, there are many Russians in Crimea. Of course, they would like to be with Russia, probably, but it's Ukrainian. It's within the Ukrainian border. Okay, and it should undergo the procedure legislated, okay, governmental one, so that everything should be well done. Let's talk about the Maidan. Was it good or bad? Because it's kind of a stupid talk, but I would dedicate some video to this stupid talk. First of all, if that referendum, if those that decision, let's say, okay, if that was done inside Ukrainian border, within Ukrainian Crimea, it could have right to leave. Honestly speaking, this is again world shortcoming because we do not have much cases, if not saying any, of those when some part of country decided to get along, and just be separated from the bigger country. We should have that actually within countries, and it would be good idea. Maybe that Brexit was partially the case when Britain separated from the European Union. It was not maybe good for both Europeans and the British people. It wasn't probably the best decision, anyways, but that's a good case that there is freedom. People could join union or kind of go a part of that union. And yeah, we do not have precedents of that kind, but it doesn't mean that the Crimea should be just taken by force. The election or the decision should be made, should have been made under the guns, under the arms, with the invaders already there. That's not a law case, okay? And again, one more time about nukes. It didn't happen up until now. It won't happen. I believe so. If it would happen, it wouldn't be your fault. It would be Putin's fault. But if it continues expansion and you find yourselves in Gulag or in some kind of prison camp worldwide, would you be happy about that? And since there would be good people of free will, I believe so, that monster nation would probably use nukes anyway in future, if so, if its expansion continues. It would find another target, whatever. It should be stopped now. Next question on nukes is about the kind of separation of Russia. Why do we think that for Russia to be separated to kind of into several regions, isolated several regions or nations or countries, is a bad idea because each and every one of them would have nukes. So nuclear weapons, let's say, is a case for a deep talk. It won't be now. So that's why for today I would just to make a statement. If you disagree with me, feel free to write. If you agree, so welcome. If you have your points and arguments, please share. I'm totally open because I know I do not have all the information, but I do have principles and moral values which are just quite firm, quite solid, quite strong. So even we think that it's kind of Russia and Ukraine affairs, it's not. We still should support Ukraine as the victim and in purpose and for the purpose of stopping Russia. Okay. Yes, there is too much corruption in Ukraine, but so is in Russia, but so is in many countries. So it's not an argument to not stop the aggressor. It's not the argument to give to the aggressor just a free way to get whatever he wants. That's a stupid idea. Yeah, Putin does have nuclear weapons, but it's not about not stopping him. It's not about not helping Ukraine. Because the more we fight, the more we invest in Ukraine, the more Putin's regime weakens. Okay? And the more we have hope for a new Russia, either as a whole country or as a kind of set of separated regions, doesn't matter. Still, it would much better. So that's it for now. Again, please feel free to share whatever you think. Have a nice day and let's hope for the Ukrainian victory. See you and bye.